the secret of success in your life? Successful people are asked that what is the secret of their success, because everybody wants to get the sutra right so that he can also live life king size. Have you seen that ad? Live life king size. But how to be the king? To be able to take right decisions. So this famous personality said that the secret of success of my life is right choice. And what is the basis of making the right choice? Huh? Right? He said experience. You are able to take right decision based on learning and experiences from your life. And where does experience come from? Where does learning come from? When is the maximum learning? In which situation do you learn the most? When you make a wrong choice. So Bhagavad Gita gives us the enlightenment, the wisdom to be able to not just make the choice. Choice means which is based on our pleasure and pain. If you see, everyone on this planet Earth, whether he is in this human form of life or he may be even below the human species, they are exercising their right to choice. What are the animals deciding their choice based on? Pleasure and pain. Everyone is seeking the choice based on pleasure and pain. Whatever gives me pleasure, I will opt for that. And whatever gives me pain, I will reject that. Right or wrong? How do we live life? What is the criteria of making our decisions? Based on pleasure and pain. But that is, as it is evident, that even every species of life is making a choice based on pleasure and pain. So it is on the physical part. It is at the lower stratum. Then higher than that is preference. Preference. Preference means that based on one's mental aptitude. What is the mental aptitude? Is one's liking and disliking. But Bhagavad Gita gives us the knowledge to come to the level of discrimination. And discrimination is at the level of conscience. Whether the choice is based on principle or whether the choice is based on pleasure. Bhagavad Gita gives us the enlightenment that every choice or every decision that we make in an endeavor to make a decision which is based on pleasure is the root of all our suffering. Suffering is not coming because of situations or circumstances or people from outside. The suffering is coming because of our wrong choices. And what is the basis? What is the foundation of such choice? Is the choice based on our seeking pleasure. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukh yone hi evite. Krishna in the 5th chapter, he enlightens. He says, Yehi samsparshaja bhoga. That in an endeavor to enjoy or expand one's enjoyment, what is the living entity experiencing? Dukh yone hi. And such pleasures have a beginning, adi, and anta. Anta means the termination of the end. It is temporal. There is the starting point and there is also a finishing point. Adi antavanta tu kaunteya na teshu ramate buddha. So Bhagavad Gita gives us that wisdom, that knowledge, through which we can make the right choice. And the first chapter that we see Arjuna making his decision. So we are on the second section of the first chapter. As we discussed previously, we have completed the first section, which is the observing the armies on the battlefield. And the second section is Arjuna's lamentation, Arjuna's Vishad. And in this section, Arjuna will cite 4 reasons: his preferences and his choices, as to why he has decided that he will not fight. So we see in our real life situation, every day we face such battle. What is the battle? What is the conflict that we have to every day, every moment take a decision, right or wrong? Do we have to take decision or not? At this moment you have decided, you have taken a decision to be here. You are here to hear Bhagavad Gita. But others, those who have been invited also, they have been informed, they have made a decision that they are not able to come, or maybe they are not willing to come. So we face this situation every day, every moment in our life. So what is the basis? What is the foundation of making a decision? Whether it is our choice, it is our preference, or is it based on discrimination? So let us see what Arjuna is basing his decisions on. We saw in the 27th and the 28th verse, Arjuna gave one very powerful reason that why he would not fight. What is the first reason Arjuna cites that he does not want to fight? Is compassion. Compassion based on body and bodily relations. Because Arjuna's instruction to Krishna was that he is wanting to see all those who have assembled on the battlefield with a view to fight. And 28th verse says that Dishtva evam swajanam Krishna yuyusam samupastitam sidanti mam gatrani mukham cha parishusyati. Arjuna said, my dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth running up. Arjuna on one side is showing compassion, and in his heart, what is he experiencing? He is experiencing fear. So Arjuna gives the example of the relatives and friends. And before that, he says, Kripaya Parya Vishnu. He is overwhelmed with Kripaya, with compassion, with mercy. That what is the compassion? He is feeling that if I fight and if I kill, I will suffer more. So better for me not to fight and not to kill, so that I can have the relationship intact. And now we will see in the 30th verse and the next, which is from, we have covered the 30th. We covered 30th. Okay. So in the 30th verse, Arjuna is revealing that how his mind is reeling. His mind is completely disturbed, captivated. And what he sees nimittani cha pashyami viparitani keshu. So when we are faced with such a difficult decision making, So what we see, what is good for us, we see as it is a bad. Don't start the screen share. Wait. Try to hear. Bhagavad Gita is for hearing. Through hearing, we can read or study. So Arjuna is saying that I am forgetting myself. And my mind is completely disturbed. When one forgets himself, when one is in mental unrest, his balance is disturbed. And he sees the causes of misfortune. The greatest fortune for a warrior is to fight for the right cause. But what is Arjuna seeing? He is seeing misfortune. So that is very typical of a conditioned soul. That what is good for us, our mind decodes it as bad. And what is bad for us, the mind codes it as good or best. Because mind has a characteristic. What is the characteristic of mind? That it imagines pleasure. It imagines pleasure. And it magnifies problem. So Arjuna, in such a situation, he is giving the second reason. The first reason was our superfluous reason. Superfluous samajhte hai na? Many times we act in such a way which we don't mean. Just to try to impress and show others that how big or how great I am. Arjuna is showing compassion. But the second reason Arjuna gives is at a realistic level. So first we will cover the 31st verse and then we will discuss 32nd to 35th, which gives the second reason. So in the 31st verse, see what Arjuna is speaking. He says, Nacha Shreyo Anupashyami Hatva Swajanamahave Nakamshe Vijayam Krishna Nacha Rajyam Sukhanicha. So Arjuna is giving his preference. First, what he gave? His choice. Now he is giving his preference. What is his preference? Nacha Shreyo Anupashyami. Pashyami means to see. And Anupashyami means to be able to see through one's own perception or through the perception which is created by one's mind or own intelligence. So his Shreya means which is ultimate good. So he says, I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen. So this is the doubt which Arjuna is bringing before Krishna. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen in this battle. Nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. So Arjuna has come in such a situation, in such a hopeless and helpless situation, that for him, he does not see anything good happening because of the war. He says, how any good can come in the battle? Why? Because he is on the basis of his mental platform. Mental platform समझते हैं, मन के स्तर पे. And what is the characteristic of the mind? It is constantly accepting and rejecting. It is sankalpaha and vikalpaha. And what is the basis of sankalpaha and vikalpaha? Raga and dvesha. Likes and dislikes. So the same persons whom he said that they are Durbuddhir Dhartarashtra, those evil-minded sons of Dhritarashtra, now what they have become? They have become Swajanam. This is what our mind does. That which has no good for us, it makes us imagine that there is entire pleasure in it. And once you achieve it, you can really enjoy or you can become much happy. So now Arjuna's mind, because he's so disturbed, he is so much in dilemma that he cannot see any good. Why? Because his wisdom is covered by attachment. Attachment which is based on his bodily relationship. And he has forgotten that what is his purpose of being on the battlefield. To such an extent that he says that I do not see how any good can come from killing. What is this battle for? What is this battle of Kurukshetra being fought for? For establishing of dharma. So if the person is on the mental platform, it is impossible for him to practice dharma. Why? Because the mind will speak, like it is speaking here in the case of Arjuna, that I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen in this battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. This is how the mind tricks us. So Prabhupada says that without knowing that one's self-interest is in Vishnu or Krishna, conditioned souls are attracted by bodily relationships. So this is the situation of one who is not in the enlightened position. So he will make his choice based on his physical or his mental well-being. But he will not be able to take the decision which will result in his ultimate well-being. So Prabhupada starts with saying that the self-interest is in Vishnu or Krishna. Nate vidu swarth gatim hi Vishnu. Durashaya bahi arth manina. Andha yatha andha upagiye mana. This is what Prahlad Maharaj speaks. Prahlad Maharaj says that Nate vidu swarth gatim hi Vishnu. That because of the illusion which comes from attachment. So one cannot see his self-interest or his ultimate interest. Shreya means the ultimate interest. There are two types of interest. One is the immediate interest. Every one of us is interested in immediate interest, isn't it? Like the child's immediate interest is what? Is to play. Does the child agree to study? But the parents, they know what is the ultimate interest of the child. They make the child stop playing and send him to school. Does the child like it? But the parents do not compromise. So similarly, the conditioned soul, he is not able to see what is his best interest. What is he thinking? That if I can enjoy life based on objects and matter, I will be happy. But the Supreme Father Krishna, he knows that this is the root, the cause of one's suffering. So that is why Prahlad Maharaj is saying that everyone in this material world, they do not know that what is the cause or source of their ultimate happiness. And what is the cause and source of our ultimate happiness is Lord Vishnu or Krishna. Why? Because Durashaya Bahi Arth Manina. Ashray, you understand? Shelter. Because the mind has taken Durashaya. What is the mind taking the shelter of? Of Krishna's external energy. Illusionary energy. So Bahi Arth Manina. Arth, you understand? Arth has two things, two understanding. One, it means value. Arth means value. And earth also means meaning. So Bahi Earth means that earth or that meaning which is external. External means which is not real. So because one has taken to the false shelter, or one has taken to the illusory shelter, he will never be able to take the right choice or make the right preference. Durashaya bahi artha. Why? Because he is andha. Andha means one who is blind. And how he has become blind? By following the other blind. This is what we see. What do we call in this world? Rat race. You know rat race? Chuha thought. Suna hai nahi suna? What is the rat race? Everyone is thinking that with money, with position, with post, with beautiful partner, I can be happy. So he is andha. Andha means one who is blind. And how he has become blind? Because he is following the other blind man. So this is what Srila Prabhupada is addressing here. That in such a blind conception of life, they forget even the cause of material happiness. So what do we expect from a blind person? What is expected from a blind person? Can he reach the destination on his own? Is it possible for him? Is it possible? What is the possibility? That he might met with an accident, or he might hurt himself. So in such a blind conception of life, they forget even the cause of material happiness. Although in material life, there is no happiness. But what is material happiness? To the extent that one is observing the Varna and Ashram. Arjuna appears to have even forgotten the moral codes of Kshatriya. So that is the basis of discrimination. So first is, as I said, choice. Higher than that is the preference. But even higher is the ability to discriminate. And the discrimination ability is there, which is developed in the human form of life. It is not there with the animals. What is so special about the human form of life? That we have been given the superior intelligence. And what is the function of intelligence? Is to be able to discriminate. That what is to be done and what is not to be done. What is right and what is wrong. What is the basis of discrimination? That what is dharma and what is adharma. So here Arjuna, he has become completely blind. That he has even forgotten the moral codes of a Kshatriya. It is said that the two kind of men, namely the Kshatriya who dies directly in front of the battlefield under Krishna's personal order, and the person in the renounced order of life who is absolutely devoted to spiritual culture, are eligible to enter into the sun glow, which is so powerful and dazzling. So this is the moral code, the Manu Samhita. It gives that those who are following the moral codes, they are automatically elevated. Arjuna is reluctant even to kill his enemies, let alone his relatives. He thinks that by killing his kinsmen, there would be no happiness in his life. And therefore, he is not willing to fight. Why? Because for him, his consideration or his concern is his own pleasure. He is making his choice based on his own pleasure and pain. He is not considering the principle, the moral code. Just as a person who does not feel hunger is not inclined to cook. So if there is a housewife, supposingly our mother, if our mother, she is duty bound, a housewife is duty bound to prepare meals for every member of the family. If the cook says that he or she has no hunger, so he or she decides that they will not cook. So what will be the result? That everyone else will have to remain hungry. So that is not expected. That is not his dharma. So Prabhupada is saying that he has now decided to go into the forest and live a life, secluded life in frustration. So please try to understand this principle, very deep and subtle principle. Why we face frustration in life? The reason for facing frustration in life is that we have failed to perform our duty. To the extent we fail to perform our duty, we will be faced with frustrations, disappointments, and sufferings. Irrespective of whatever we may be planning or we may be perceiving. One can only become happy if he performs his duty. To the extent he is trying to avoid or neglect his duty, to that extent he will be inflicted by pain and suffering. So Arjuna, Prabhupada is saying that whatever decision he may be thinking, he is thinking that if I don't fight and if I don't kill and my kinsmen continue to live, I can be happy and they can remain happy. Even if I have to go to the forest to live a life of seclusion, or even if I have to go to the extent of begging. Prabhupada is saying, what will be his life? His life will be a life full of frustration. The Kshatriyas cannot engage themselves in any other occupation. But Arjuna has no kingdom. Arjuna's sole opportunity for gaining the kingdom lies in fighting with his cousins and brothers and reclaiming the kingdom inherited from his father, which he does not like to do so. Preference. Our life is made of our preferences. And what is the preference based on? Our liking and our disliking. So to the extent we remain on this platform, what will be the result? What will be the natural result? Is frustration. That is why we see, particularly in today's youth, there is so much of frustration. To the extent that they go in depression. Or even they take up to bad practices or bad habits. So this is the reason. So Bhagavad Gita gives us the enlightenment and it cautions us. It saves us from the situation of suffering. So what is good for us, we cannot decide on our own. Why? Because we are on the physical and mental platform. Therefore, he considers himself fit to go to the forest to live in a life of secluded life of frustration. So, but Arjuna is honest. The good quality of Arjuna is that he is thoroughly honest. So he admits, now we will see in the this 3 verses, Arjuna admits that why he does not want to really fight. And this reason that he cites is a very prominent reason in most of our life for the basis that we make decisions or choices. So what is the reason he cites? This is the 32nd and 35th verse. Kim nu rajena govinda kim bhogena jivatena va ye shamarte kamshitam no rajyam bhoga sukhani cha te ma vyavasthita yuddhe pranam staktva dhanani cha acharya pitra putras tatheva cha pitamaha मातुला स्वशुरा पौत्रा श्याला संबंधनिस्तथा एतान्न हन्तुम् इच्छामि भन्तो अपि मधुसूदन अपि त्रैलोक्यराजस्य हेतु किं न मही कृते निहात्य धार्तराष्ट्रान् का प्रीति स्यात् जनार्दन. It's a big verse, almost 4 verses together. So Arjuna is addressing Krishna as Govinda. You know Govinda? Govinda. Go means cow and go also means the senses. And one who gives pleasure to the cows, that is Govind or Gopal. That's Krishna's name. And also Krishna gives pleasure to our senses. His name is also Rishikesha, one who is the master and controller of our senses. So he is addressing Krishna and saying, "Oh Govinda, of what avail to us are a kingdom, happiness, or even life itself?" See the extent of frustration in the heart of Arjuna. That he is saying that whether it is kingdom or happiness or even this life, what avail it is to us when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield. O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, father-in-law, grandsons, brother-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them? Even though they might otherwise kill me. So Arjuna has become very saintly. What he says, they might come and kill me, but I will not fight with them. O maintainer of all living entities, that is Janardhana, I am not prepared to fight with them even in exchange of the three worlds. अगर तीनों जगत का राज मिले तो भी मैं युद्ध नहीं करूंगा. कोई बोले मैं पीएचडी नहीं करूंगा. क्यों? पीएचडी की डिग्री क्या, अगर मुझे आईआरआई का डायरेक्टरशिप मिले तो भी नहीं करूंगा. Why? What pleasure will be derived from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? So Arjuna is giving the second reason. And what is the second reason? He is saying that I am willing to fight only if the fight will enhance my enjoyment. And this fighting will entail killing, and killing will mean that my relatives will be dead. My brothers will be dead. So with whom will I enjoy the kingdom with? So because I cannot enjoy the kingdom, because the kingdom will only be won when I kill. And the pain that I will receive from killing is going to be much more than the pleasure that I will receive from achieving the kingdom. So better for me that I give up the kingdom, I give up the fight, and I go to the forest, so that my enjoyment can remain intact. So we see in this real world situation that all decisions that we make is primarily on this criteria, that what will increase my enjoyment. To the extent our mind feels that my enjoyment can be enhanced, then it is willing to perform that activity or action. And as soon as it sees that there will be a curtailment in the enjoyment, the mind is not willing, or mind is not agreeing to perform that activity. So here Arjuna is playing the typical role of a normal human being who is very much driven by his own pleasure and pain. He is completely ignoring the fact that why is he on the battlefield. He is ignoring the fact that even Krishna has agreed to become his charioteer so that he can fight and he can win. But he is completely ignoring this reality that Krishna wants this fight so that dharma can be established. So we see through the life lesson of Arjuna that how the mind very articulately sidetracks the living entity. He has not only forgotten the purpose of his coming, but he has also completely forgotten Krishna's will. So the conditioned soul, when we live life, when we are leading our life, do we ever think that what is the purpose of human form of life? Why we have been given this human form of life? What is the purpose of human form of life? And are we moving in the direction to fulfill that purpose of human form of life? Or our own agenda or our own plan, our own ideas is just on the basis of our own enjoyment. So here Arjuna is signifying this, that the conditioned soul is only interested in his own personal enjoyment. So that is the lower level of consciousness. What is the lower level of consciousness? It is the platform of desire. Higher than desire is duty. So human life is a life of responsibility, is a life to discharge one's duty. How many times this question, this alarm is raised in your heart, that what is the duty of being a student in IARI? Please genuinely raise your hand. And to what extent you are trying to fulfill the purpose of being in IARI? You are all students of IARI. How many times this question comes in your heart? Not even once. We never think that the entire nation is paying for our study. Do we ever think that? कभी सोचा आप लोगों ने? And are we fulfilling the purpose for which I have been given the admission? We are all settled in our own desires, in our own plans, in our own proposals, in our own dream world. Completely ignoring why, what is the purpose I am here. So we see in our normal life, it is impossible for a conditioned soul to be able to take the right decision. Why? Because his decision making is based on his choice. And his choice is based on his enjoyment, on his pleasure and pain at the physical level. Or even if it is on the mental level, it is on the basis of his like and dislike, his raga and dvesha, his attachment. So Arjuna is showing excessive attachment here towards his relatives and friends. So what we need? We need to live a life which is based on consultation. Arjuna here is completely ignoring the presence of Krishna, who is present right in front of him, seated right ahead of him as his chariot driver. So, in our life situation, what lesson we learn? That we should not rely on our own decisions. In life situation, what we should do? We should take help of someone who is beyond pleasure and pain, likes and dislikes, so that we can fulfill the purpose of human form of life. Otherwise, the human form of life will go a waste. So here Prabhupada says that by using the significant verb, Arjuna indicates that Krishna should understand what will satisfy Arjuna's senses. So this is how we approach the Supreme Lord. Sometimes we become religious and we approach the Supreme Lord. But what is the purpose of approaching the Supreme Lord? That the Supreme Lord should understand that what my desire is. And he should fulfill my desire. Here it is. Arjuna indicates that Krishna should understand what will satisfy Arjuna's senses. But Govinda is not meant for satisfying our senses. So the Lord is not there to be our order supplier. You understand what is order supplier? People go to the temple also. It is good that they come. But what they come with? They come with a wish list. Sukha sampati ghare aave, kashta mite tanaka. Then we will say Jai Jagadish. Om Jai Jagadish. Prabhupada says that if we try to satisfy the senses of Govinda, however, then automatically our senses are satisfied. So this is the secret. How we can become happy? If we try to become happy individually on the basis of our own choices and preference, it will never happen. It can never happen. But on the other hand, if we try to satisfy the Supreme Lord, how? By following His instructions, by following His directions. Then we will automatically be satisfied. So many examples are given. Simple example. Who works the most? The hands or the legs or the stomach? How does one earn? Based on his intellect or his hands? Working senses are hands, legs. But where he has to feed? Can the hand rebel and say, I have worked so hard, and why should I feed the stomach? But if you feed the stomach, what happens? Naturally, the entire body is nourished. Similarly, if you pour the water on the root of the tree, the entire tree is nourished. Similarly, the root of happiness is the Supreme Lord. That is what Prahlad Maharaj is saying, that the mass of men do not know this. Nate vidu swart gatim hi Vishnu. This is what Prabhupada says. That people do not know that the source of happiness for the human life is their service to Krishna or Vishnu. So if we satisfy the Supreme, if we serve the Supreme, then we can become happy. This is the secret. I'll give you one example. In my life, I experienced it. You have heard of Jagdish Singh and Chitra Singh? Most of you would have heard. Very famous ghazal singer. Very professionally also, very, very successful. They used to perform so many of their shows and concerts. And they used to charge a lot of money. And whenever their show was there, wherever it was, in whichever city, it always used to be fully subscribed. The organizers were also making money, and these professional artists, they were also making money. But somehow one tragic incident happened in their life. You know what happened? They only had one son. And that son died young in an accident. So both Jagdish Singh and Chitra Singh, they became very disturbed. They were not prepared for this kind of accident in their life. So then they performed one charitable program. They came to ISKCON. They performed in Mumbai. And after performing that charitable, for other programs, they were charging. But for this program, they did not charge. They rendered service. That was for fundraising, for building a part of project in Juhu. So after the program, the singer said that the maximum satisfaction in my life I experienced today. Why? Because he rendered selfless service. So to the extent we are self-centered and we are selfish in our interest, to that extent we will never experience happiness. Because the happiness is not of the mind. The happiness is of the heart. And in the heart, there is the living entity and the super soul. To the extent one satisfies the super soul is satisfied, the living entity feels happiness. That is why you see, in today's world, people are thinking that if I get a new bike, students, what is their desire? To get the latest bike. By getting the bike, do they become happy? They become even more frustrated because they had the aspiration that if I have the bike, the most beautiful college girl will be on the back of my bike. It will not happen. It will lead to more frustration. Or to have the best of the mobile phone. Our ego may be happy for few moments, trying to show others that look, I am better. Or I have something which is higher than you. But the heart will not experience happiness. So happiness is when we render selfless service. The big topic. I'm just introducing it. So what is the choice based on? The choice is based on one's conscience, one's value. And the value is based on the principle. So here we see in this section that Arjuna is becoming completely oblivion of the moral principles and of the religious principles. So to the extent we remain aloof and blinded to moral and religious principles, there is no question of any happiness at any level. Rather, it will be a life of frustration and depression. So how to come out of this situation is through the merit of consulting. Arjuna here is not even consulting. Is he consulting? He's not consulting. He's making his own decision. He is giving his own verdict that what there is no good in fighting. Even if I win the kingdom, I will not be happy. So in this way, Arjuna is showing completely oblivion of what is the purpose for which he is here. He has even forgotten that Krishna is with him. And Krishna has agreed to become his charioteer so that he can fight and he can win the war. Similarly, in our practice of Krishna consciousness, we come in similar situation that we try to take our own decisions, thinking that what good is of this practice? What good is of chanting Hare Krishna? What good is of keeping so many restrictions and regulations? I do not see any cause of happiness, any cause of enjoyment. Just because we cannot see, it does not exist. A child who is small, as the same example which I gave, just because he cannot see how study can give him happiness, there is no happiness in studying. So similarly, because we are blinded by the attachments. We are blinded by our likes and dislikes. We are blinded by our pleasures and pains. We cannot see the ultimate benefit, the ultimate good. So does that mean there is no benefit or there is no good? So this verse, this section, this verse gives us this enlightenment that on our own, it is impossible for a conditioned soul to make the right choice. And if he still insists to do that, he is the only cause for his suffering. So in this way we see. So, and what are the merits of consulting? The merit of consulting is that he will be able to see or he will be guided to come to the platform of understanding the real purpose of motive. of his human form of life. And what is his role and responsibility? To the extent we perform duty, to that extent we satisfy the Supreme Lord. And to the extent we satisfy the Supreme Lord, we can experience happiness, not otherwise. So as we see in today's world, as advancement, so-called advancement is happening, what is shrinking? Happiness. Do we experience happiness in our relations? Why? Because to the extent we are going further away from performing our duty, to the extent we are becoming self-centered and selfish, to that extent we will only experience frustration and we will experience pain. And here Arjuna is taking the role of an ordinary living being, and he is showing, he is reflecting that he is completely oblivious of his responsibility, of his role. Krishna is right in front of him, but he is not willing to hear Krishna. So he is suffering. We will see Arjuna will give so many other reasons, so many other yes, Arjuna will give so many other proposals that why he does not want to fight. But most prominent proposal. So in our life also, the most prominent criteria for us to make decision is this factor. What is the factor? Our own enjoyment. Whatever our mind codes as enjoyable, we are willing to perform that activity. And wherever the mind perceives that there is pain, we are immediately taking a decision that we want to reject, we want to give up. So this is the quitting tendency. Spiritual life is not meant to quit. Spiritual life means to serve. And as one serves, because that is the natural function of the soul. What is the function of the soul? Is to love and to serve. And to the extent we come to this natural position, we can experience happiness, not otherwise. Although this lead singer, he lost his son. He had so much of pain in his heart. But because for the first time in his life, he performed this selfless service. So the joy which he experienced, this was the experience of his life. I'll give you one more example. Have you ever experienced, like in mess, you have some feast, you have feast, and what happens on the feast? You have more people coming to your mess than on an average day, right or wrong? So what happens? That those who come last, what is their situation? Do they get the full feast? Some items are over exhausted. So supposingly, one member has kept a plate for him, and in that plate he has kept the two best preparations with him, and his plate is covered, is kept aside. It happens, no? It happens, no? And when there is a feast, the person is not able to come, so he gives a call that I am not able to come, but you please secure my plate. Right or wrong? Have you ever done it? Never? We do it. We do it all the time. Because we don't want to lose out. I have an experience with one of my good friends. When I came to the temple new, and I came a little late in the Prasadam hall, and there was a big feast. And when I came, the gulab jamun was over. So what the mind does, the focus of the mind goes on that item, which is not available. Everything else is available. So I saw in one of the devotees, he was honoring his feast, but in his plate there were two gulab jamuns. Immediately my eye and my mind, rather than my eye, my mind caught it. And because he was a good friend of mine, I sat beside him and I told him that this is very unjust. Because you have taken two, so you have deprived someone of having his genuine share. क्योंकि आपने दो ले लिया, इसलिए आपकी वजह से जिसका हिस्सा था उसे मिला. Then he asked me, आपको नहीं मिला क्या? मैंने कहा नहीं मिला. Then he asked me, what do you want? I said, I want both. So he said, tell us. So I took one gulab jamun and I ate it. That was the sweetest gulab jamun I have ever experienced in my life. What was the taste in it? The taste was to serve. The taste was of selflessness. The joy is not in enjoying. The joy is in serving, is in giving. Once we come to that platform, we can experience that. So many times we do prasad distribution. Have you done prasad distribution? Supposingly you are fasting. Many times we have fasting till 12 and you experience it. It's supposingly there is fasting and that fasting extends till 2 in the afternoon. And then you are told that you first serve and then you eat. You try this out. If you serve, it becomes 4. It becomes 4 in the afternoon. And since morning you are fasting. But you try to honor prasad, you will not be able to eat much. If you eat without serving, and when you eat after serving, the intake will be much less. Why? Because the heart is already full. So the joy is in giving. But the mind, our mind is programmed by nature in such a way, by the 3 modes, that it is always thinking, it is decoding in the wrong way. And we are dedicated followers of our mind. And our mind is leading us to all suffering and frustration. Like here Arjuna is saying that I don't want to fight. What good is fight for me? What to speak of this kingdom? Even if I get the kingdom of the 3 worlds, I will not be able to enjoy. So we should not be misguided by our mind. So we should lead a life which is based on consultation of those who are not, but who can discriminate what is good and what is bad, which is based on dharma. So if we lead a life based on principle rather than enjoyment, then we can see that we can really live life to full enlightenment and happiness. Okay, so I will stop here. Just 8:50. So any question or any discussion? So we see that most of our decisions are centered on this very criteria of what will make me happy. And what the mind decodes is own enjoyment. But that is not the reality. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare
I have a small query.
Okay.
प्रभुजी आपने जैसे बताया कि Am I audible, Prabhuji?
Now you are audible.
Sorry, Prabhuji, internet got disconnected. मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि मतलब जो फिटिंग टेंडेंसी के बारे में आपने बताया, जैसे कि मतलब जो चीज हमको मुश्किल लगती है करने में मतलब दिक्कत आती है, दो कि हमको पता होता है कि मतलब वो करना चाहिए, तो उस टाइम पे करेज कैसे गैदर करें कि नहीं मतलब वो चीज को करना ही है एट एनी कॉस्ट? हाउ टू ओवरकम दैट टेंडेंसी?
Is through good association. In good association, you see, Krishna will tell Arjuna, Krishna will ask Arjuna that if you run away, you will be labeled as coward. So we should have good association. We should have association of those who are based on principles. And how to have our determination more strong? We should live a life of regulation. If we live a life of regulation, we are in the mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, we can decide on the basis of instructions. But in the mode of passion, it is impossible. Impossible. In passion, the mind supersedes. So we have to do the ABCD right. Good association, to sharpen our intelligence by Bhagavad Gita. Chanting. Chanting purifies our heart. Why do we do not want to perform our duty? Why? Because we think that by performing our duty, we have to perform some sacrifice. So the impure heart is not willing to sacrifice. So by chanting, we make our heart pure. So it will not be engaged in sinful activity. And D is right. Try to take only Krishna Prasad. Because it will not contaminate our mind. Very simple. You try these 4 basic things. You will see there will be conviction in the heart to perform our duty, not to remain at the platform of desire. The platform of desire is what? Is sinful. Unless and until we perform duty, one is leading a life full of sin. Krishna will explain that when we will come to the 2nd chapter. The 3rd argument with Arjuna will give, that we will discuss from the next class, that if I fight and if I kill, I will incur sinful reaction. But Krishna will refute his argument, that if he does not fight and if he does not kill, he will receive actually a sinful reaction. Why we are weak? Because our intelligence is not strong. So we have to sharpen our intelligence. So intelligence have both determination and discrimination. So then we will not be in such a situation.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any question from your side or any query or any doubt? Puche. सब क्लियर है? अगर कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है तो there are 2 natural outcomes. Either we have understood everything or nothing has been understood. Yes, Dola.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, normally our mind doesn't accept that we should take consultation. And when we should, when we'll come to the stage that we should feel that, yes, I need some consultation.
At 2 levels. When the intelligence is sufficiently advanced. Second, when the suffering is sufficient. Till the time the suffering is not sufficient, he will not learn the lesson. So he will continue to suffer. And with suffering and frustration, he will gradually come to this realization. But if he is sufficiently advanced, he will learn from others. First class intelligent person is who learns from others' mistake. Second class intelligent person is who learns from his mistake. And third class person is who never learns from neither others or his own mistake, still commits the same mistake. That is why our Acharya says, Shakti Buddhi Hina Ami Ati. So the choice is ours. Continue to take decision based on our choices and preference and continue to suffer. Or we want to get rid of this suffering state. See what Arjuna did, how much he is suffering, we will see in the first chapter, even in the beginning of the second chapter. And finally, after giving so many arguments, giving so many words of so many wisdom, which Arjuna was thinking, what is this situation? He's crying. His body is burning. His heart is burning. So he finally takes shelter. And he gets himself relieved. To the extent the conditioned soul does not take shelter, to the extent the conditioned soul does not feel that he is helpless, he continues to suffer in this material world. That is why Mahaprabhu says, Brahmand Brahmite Kaun Bhagyavan. Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Katha. When one's great fortune arises, then he seeks the shelter of consultation. Not otherwise. Okay. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much for coming and hearing. Please remain coming and hearing. The mind may not support you because that is the nature of the mind. Try to understand what is the nature of human mind and how much it is conditioned. And it is the mind's conditioning which is the cause of our suffering. And Arjuna is displaying it to the full extent. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, उपस्थित सभी भक्तगण। हरे कृष्ण।